Hey guys, my name is John and you're watching CANRUSH. I am from Canada. My wife is from Russia. That's why it's called CANRUSH, Canada, Russia. And we just recently, you could say, moved to Canada from Russia. We spent quite a bit of time in Russia, and now we plan to spend quite a bit of time in Canada. And I promised in the last video, I guess, that I would film a separate video about our car. We bought a car in Nova Scotia, Canada. So I'll tell you how we found it, how much it cost, and just some of the details about registration and insurance. Maybe some of this will be interesting for some of you, and maybe it will even help somebody, I don't know, buying their own car. So even before we came back to Canada, I started looking on some websites. Facebook's actually a good option. There's a lot of listings on Facebook. Kijiji is okay. I found there's not as many listings there. But I also really liked Auto Trader. They have an app for Canada, and there's a lot of options on there. And it kind of sucks to look too far in advance for cars, because usually the good ones are sold by the time you get there. But there was one that I really liked, and I don't know why, but it was still around when we finally got here, and I was really happy that was true. Honestly, we almost didn't see the car because we almost didn't go see it because the guy wasn't that quick at answering. But we looked at a few cars. We looked at a 2008 Honda Accord. We looked at I think it was a Kia or a Hyundai. I can't remember, but we looked at another car. Didn't like that one as much. And then we looked at this. This is a Volkswagen Passat 2012. The one that I had already found in Russia. And my criteria were pretty broad. I wanted a reliable car, so I was mostly looking at Hondas, Toyotas, Volkswagen. My grandfather loves Volkswagen, so that definitely influenced my choice to look for that. And he's been buying them for like a couple decades, I think, Volkswagens. And so I wanted to have 4 doors. I wanted it to be a little bit bigger, like have a big trunk, because we have like a stroller and a bunch of stuff for us and the baby. We even have a high chair that we've been traveling with. So I was looking like for like an Accord rather than a Civic, or for the Passat rather than a Jetta, for example, or a Camry rather than a Corolla. And this Volkswagen Passat, just I really like the look of it. It only has 114,000 and some kilometers when we found it, and it's a manual transmission. And in Canada and the US, as most of you probably already know that are watching this, like 98% I think of new vehicles are automatic, have an automatic transmission. And I just wanted to have more experience with the manual transmission, because I've driven a manuals like, you could count them on my fingers how many times in my life before this. And also the last 2 cars that we bought had transmission problems. So we ended up selling them, and it's a long story, but I figured with the manual transmission, you usually don't have as many transmission problems. So anyway, for several reasons, we thought that was a good option. The guy wanted $7,000 for this car, and that was even a little bit below the recommended value and then all the websites that I searched. So I was a little bit worried that we might not be able to get the price down much. But the guy was probably really played in his favor, because we looked at the car. My father and we looked at the car, and we liked it. We took it for a test drive, and we told him, you know, we'll think about it, we'll come back to you. And before we left, he said, how much is my listing for there? And I said $7,000. And he said, I'll give it to you for $6,000. Or he said, there's a roof rack. If you don't want the roof rack, I'll give it to you for $5,800. So he basically did most of the negotiating for us, and it really gave me a different perspective, like comparing it to the other cars that we looked at. I thought, well, I mean, when you already know how low the guy's willing to go, definitely I can get it for $5,800. Then I'm like, wow, well, it's, you know, the Accord that we looked at was 2008. This is a 2012, so it's 4 years newer. In this part of the world, we're close to the ocean, and we have really rough winters, and we use salt on the road, so there's a lot of rust problems here. So the newer the car is better, right, for the body, especially in this region. And so we thought about it, looked at other cars, thought about it, looked on the websites, kept monitoring them, and it would just seem like a really good deal. So I texted the guy, I'll give you $5,500 today, cash. And he called me right away and he said, okay, let's do it. So yeah, we went, we got the car for $5,500. I'm 30 years old, and this is actually the first car I bought in Canada. I've spent probably 8 years plus outside of Canada since in the last 10 years. So that's kind of the reason. I have bought 3 cars in the US actually, although I've only spent about 2 years there in my life. And yeah, they were at different time periods. That's another story. But I had a 1988 Lincoln Town Car, which I bought for $800, and I completely loved it. We actually drove it from Utah to Nova Scotia, which was like 5,000 kilometers before our wedding. And then yeah, we had to part with it. But yeah, so all of this was kind of new to me. I had to look for insurance. And apparently the most important thing with insurance here is, in terms of what the price is how long you've been on insurance. How long you've been insured. You had auto insurance in the past 6 years. And I haven't had any auto insurance for the past 6 years. Neither has my wife in Canada. Although I had insurance in Russia, I had insurance in the US. And another factor, I mean, of course, aside from the fact that, you know, we have a completely clean driving history, no accidents on record, no tickets, even speeding tickets and stuff like that in Canada. So so we're good in those areas, but we don't have the insurance history right now. And my wife had a full Russian license since she was 18, but she just got her Canadian license. I think it was in 2018. So it's been like 3 years since she got her Canadian license. It's a full license right away because she was sort of able to convert her Russian license after she did a couple tests here. But they consider her as basically a new driver here in Nova Scotia and Canada. And that really bumped up our price. So I spent like 4 hours on the phone in addition to going on a lot of different websites. And the websites that, you know, some people were saying were cheaper, for us they ended up being way more expensive. And the prices we were getting were like, for just the most basic liability insurance, were I think as much as like 2,200 Canadian dollars for the year. And I almost went with a price of like 120 some dollars per month, $125 a month, which was less, but still like way more than I would like to pay. But they weren't answering, so I thought, well, I'll try another one. I just spent 4 hours on the phone, so I called TD Insurance, and I actually have a bank account with them, and I heard that they're more expensive. The quote they gave me online was a bit higher, I think. I'd done it on their website, but I called them, I told them all of our info again, and the guy told me $85 a month, I think. It ended up being $1,030 a year for the year, because we also added comprehensive, so we're covered for like theft and what else? I think like vandalism, if you hit any animals while you're driving, or if like a tree falls in the car, we're covered. I think maybe it's different, like if some way like the weather damages the car, I don't know. Anyway, we're covered for that for like $7 a month, and then I think it's like $4 a month for this forgiveness program. So the first, if you have an accident that's your fault, then the first time that happens, they won't increase your premium. So considering how much that could increase your insurance, and we figured, well, might as well pay the $4 a month or whatever for that. So we got our insurance and we went to register, and I found something out that maybe will be helpful for you guys. I don't know what it's like in other provinces, but in Nova Scotia, you have to pay sales tax on the vehicle after you buy it. When you go, if you buy it from a private seller, you go to Access Nova Scotia, and they have a book. I think it's called a black book, blue book, I don't know, it's some color book where it has the prices in it, what the value of each car is, depending on the year, etc. So they told me that the value was $7,666 for this car, and I don't even think, I can't remember if they took into account the mileage. They might have, but anyway, we only paid $5,500, so they want 15% tax for this from that amount that they have in their book. And there's a way to get it down, is you have to get the car assessed, assess the value of the car at a specialist. I think a lot of garages have somebody that can do that. I just looked on the local like Craigslist, which is called Kijiji, and I found a guy who does it for 50 bucks. So in order to save like $300 of taxes, I went to that guy and I called him first, and I told him, you know, the model and, you know, how much they're saying it should be worth and how much we paid. And he said, yeah, we should be able to do that. So he looked it over, you know, he wrote down on his piece of paper, like, you know, some of the couple of little scratches and some rust and things like that. He said, you know, that it's worth $5,500. And then I went back. I could have done this before, but I wanted to, we were kind of in a big hurry. So I just got everything registered right away and paid. And then afterwards, I was able to come in with that paper and with the assessment, and then fill out a couple other papers for them to return that part of the taxes. So we're still waiting for that in the mail, but it should work out. So that's a way to save on you know, when you buy, save on the taxes, is that sometimes if it's valued, if they value it much higher than you paid, if you got a good deal, then you might want to get it assessed. And you can, again, you can do that in advance. Another thing I'll just mention, everything seems to be running smooth. We drove all the way to Quebec, like over 1,000 kilometers. There was a code coming up, and I've read a lot about this. I'll write the name of the code, but it's a map sensor code. We bought one of those little OBD2 sensors. What is it called? Little things you stick in so that you can check the codes and different things in the computer of your car. And I've read on many forums that there's a common problem with these 2.5 liter engines, that the PCV valve, there's the diaphragm, the valve inside there, it can get torn and will like let oil somewhere where it's not supposed to be, and this map sensor gets oil on it, and when it's dirty it gives like the wrong signal, sometimes the wrong values. So we ordered a new one. There's this Dorman repair kit for that, and a lot of people say that it's helped them, some people say that it didn't. But we're still waiting for the shipment. We're going to try that and see if it works, but the car seems to run completely smooth. We even drove about 500 kilometers after clearing the code without it coming up. We got to the city and the code came up, but when we cleared it, after we've been living in this place for a couple weeks, we cleared it. We've driven maybe 6 times and the code's not coming up. It's not even pending. So I don't think it's a very serious thing, but the other day, low oil pressure came up. We checked the oil, everything seems to be okay, but I've also read that this low oil pressure could be connected to this PCV valve as well. So once we change that, we'll see. But if anybody is like a Volkswagen specialist or loves cars and they want to chat about this, we'll be happy for any help that we can get. So you can send us a message on Instagram or something like that, or just a comment, and we'll be happy. So yeah, that's our story about buying a car here in Nova Scotia. Well, and we're in Quebec right now, but here in Canada and in Nova Scotia, and hopefully this car will serve us for a few years. We plan to be in Canada for about 4 years this time around, and you know, maybe we'll change our mind, maybe we'll stay longer, but yeah, we're really hoping, fingers crossed, we're gonna try to take care of her. And I gotta give you guys a little update because somehow about 2 months has gone by, I believe, since the time I recorded this video, and things are going quite well. I did change the PCV valve, and it was torn a little bit, so I changed that with the kit, the Dorman kit. And I cleaned the throttle filter and the map sensor. I pulled that out, And since then, we haven't had that code come up at all. We haven't had a check engine light since then. And we've warmed up the car like 30 times, and we've driven like a couple thousand kilometers, I think. So that is a good sign. We were getting low oil pressure light, but it was weird because if you warmed up the car a little bit, it went away. And so I really didn't know what it was. I thought maybe like there's some grime or something, some sludge in the oil pan. So I changed the oil, and I even dropped the oil pan. It was kind of hard to get off, but managed to get it off. My father helped me, and we cleaned it all out, but really it was not dirty at all. And the pickup tube was not dirty. And we changed the filter, of course, when we changed the oil, and I just happened to, I don't know how, to come across this post, even though I had searched and searched for this problem before. I came across the post where they explained that in these cars, this 2.5 Volkswagen engine, the filter, if you get apparently they changed the specs or something for the filters, and they get like crushed somehow. Like they sort of collapse on themselves, and that can give you this low pressure light. And I think that's what happened, because I could tell the filter that was in there was a little bit collapsed, and it was hard to pull off pull out of the canister. So I think that was it, because I put in the new filter, put everything back together, the new oil, and that light hasn't come on. So we're good, I guess. Also changed the cabin air filter, which was really easy. I mean, if my wife was saying that she used to pay, you know, the what's it called, like a mechanic or whatever, to change the filters, and when you realize how easy it is, maybe it's a little bit harder in some cars, but just look up your model, and like it takes like 2 minutes to change the cabin air filter. I definitely recommend looking it up if you have been paying somebody to do that for you. And then I also changed the intake filter, I think they call it, like for the engine, for the air that goes to the engine, and that was also pretty easy. It wasn't as dirty as the one in the cabin, but I bought a new one, so I figure now I know that they're both new. Yeah, and we also changed the rear brake rotors and the rear brake pads. They were in really bad shape. I think that one of the previous owners like didn't drive for a while. There were 2 previous owners, as far as we know, or actually kind of 3. I think there was like a man who had it, then he gave it to his daughter or his niece, something like that, and then she sold it to the guy I bought it from. That's the story that I know. And yeah, I think somebody didn't drive it for a while because they were pretty rusted, and they were making like a noise. They were from rubbing, I guess, because there were parts of metal like falling off of the rotor, and one of the brake pads had like a big hole in it. So it's a good thing that we did that, and now it doesn't make any noise. So we are doing very, very well. We're very happy with the car. It has, what does it have? Oh, it has so much room. There's so much room in the trunk, and lots of room for the passengers, and yeah, we're really happy with it. Volkswagen Passat, and hopefully it will serve us for a long time to come. We'll see how things go from here. We'll keep you updated in our vlogs and stuff, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and we will see you later. Peace.